Welcome to 1455 Literary Series with Sean Murphy. I'm Jennifer Lang, and I'm really honored to be here to speak with you today. I was here a year ago. I had a conversation with Sean about my forthcoming book, then last September. And I'm just going to start there. So I gave birth last September to a book, Places We Left Behind, a memoir in miniature. And this October 15th, the second book is coming out called Landed, a yogi's memoir in pieces and poses. And the two books together can look like they're one, but they're not. So the first book, Places We Left Behind, starts in 1989 and ends in 2011. They're both memoirs, they're both true, and they're both very unconventionally written. And the story is about my French husband and I, our marital search for home. We met in the hills of Jerusalem in 1989, and we stayed in Israel for 5 years, and then we left and we moved with one baby and then three kids, and we moved to Paris and to California and to New York and to Israel and to New York and to Israel. And it stops when we left to get on the plane to go back to Israel in 2011. And Landed, a yogi's memoir in pieces and poses, starts in 2011, and it's my 7-year search on and off a yoga mat for answers to hard questions about marriage, midlife, and life in the Middle East. And it's hard for me to talk about it now, since everything that's happened between the two books, since a date that has changed my life and the life of many people for forever, October 7th of 2023. I'm going to stop right there on that note, and I'm going to back up to how did I get to this place? So I can't put a year on everything. I can put a year on a lot of things, but I can't put a year on this. Oh, I actually kind of can. I think 2017. I went to a book talk in New York. Let's see what year this came out. 2018. I went to a book talk in New York with a German woman who lives in New York named Nora Krug. And Nora Krug spoke about her illustrated memoir called Belonging. It's also out in German called Heimat, which I don't speak German, so I don't know. And A German Reckons with History and Home. And if you look at this gorgeous, gorgeous book, it's like a coffee table book. If you look at this gorgeous, gorgeous book, she's an illustrator. Every page, let me get to it, every page is different. And it's very researched. And I read this book, I think the word would be gobsmacked. I don't have I would say it like this, I don't have an artistic bone in my body, but I was smitten by the way this woman told her story through it, or in this really unique way where you, the reader, felt like you were holding something that no one else had. Then, and I think this story comes first, actually. I read a book. This came out in 2005 by the late Amy Krauss Rosenthal. It is called Encyclopedia of an Ordinary Life. I think this came before Nora Krug. And it is also in unconventionally prose, super unique, creative. Again, every page, you don't know what you're going to get. And again, gobsmacked, smitten, a feeling of like, these women, yeah, they happen to be women. These women have done something in my world, my writing world, taken these true stories and told them in the most creative ways. So I'm not artistic, but amidst or between reading these two books, that's what I think it was, I went to get an MFA at Vermont College of Fine Arts. And my third mentor, Barbara Hurd, a nature writer, like we have nothing in common. I never write about nature. I'm very weak at descriptive writing, and nature writing is probably one of my weakest links. And Barbara Hurd, I think, sensed a stiffness in my prose. Let me say it like that. And she kept saying to me, I want you to try to play on the page. And in 2015, when I worked with her, or 2016, I did not understand what she was saying to me. And I've had moments like that in my writing career. I mean, if we were to have a conversation two ways and I would say, have you had moments like that? You'd probably have a story. My first moment was in the early 2000s. I took my first, probably a creative nonfiction class without understanding the term. And I'll never forget reading something out loud and this teacher, this leader saying, you need dialogue. Your characters need to talk. And I was sitting there like, what is she saying to me? I mean, I'm a voracious reader, but I never paid attention to dialogue, things in the quotes. So, little things that happened along the way that push you, that make you think, that make you try, that make you dare, that make you approach the page differently. So Barbara Hurd just kept saying to me, I want you to try to play on the page. I want you to try to dare. I don't know if she said to me, I want you to try and think outside the box, but that's what she was saying. So Barbara Hurd, I think, came between me reading Amy Krauss Rosenthal's book, Encyclopedia of an Ordinary Life, and Nora Cruz's Belonging. And amidst that, I was definitely undergoing some kind of transformation. And didn't know where to start, and Barbara Hurd helped me. And one of the assignments she gave me was to teach me about sentence patterning, to write something using the pattern and to stick with it from beginning to end. 2 shorts, 1 long, 2 short sentences, 1 long sentence, 2 short, 1 long, 2, 1, 2, 1, and to do it from start to finish. And I have a published piece that I think is a really strong piece of writing called Boxed In on the Citron Review. That is that pattern that I followed, that she gave it to me, and I just took my story, my content, and I made it work. And it's only way after that I started to understand what she was giving me, which was teaching me how to write with constraints. And it's maybe a term you've heard, and maybe it's a term you've heard and not understood, or maybe it's something that you practice. But I basically don't know how to go back in time. I don't know how to, I'm actually working on an essay right now in normal traditional prose, and I'm really not having an easy time of it because I find it uninteresting. Writing with constraints can be anything from word count, like if you know Brevity Journal, I was an assistant editor there for a few years. They're true stories, 750 words or less. Word count is one of probably the easiest, most basic constraints to work with, or anything. I started writing acrostic essays. So some word would be on my mind, and you take the letters and you put them down the page on the left, and then you start each of your sentences with the letter that's on the left, and you tell a story. And if you've never done anything like it, I highly encourage you. So I started there, sentence patterning, word count, acrostic. And time went on, and I got more published. I became stronger as a writer. I had more confidence, kind of. And by the time I ended graduate school, I had a traditionally written manuscript. And I talked about this last year with Sean, so I won't spend too much time in it, which is it was like 95,000 words. It was really, really, really overwritten. It was like the 2 books, Places We Left Behind and Landed, as one. And it was rambling, and it was long sentences, and it was clunky, and it was not clear, and I did not know what I was saying, and it wasn't any one specific question that I was trying to answer, and it wasn't any one specific journey that I was taking you on, and it was a mess. And I didn't say to myself, oh, I'm going to break it into 2. That it doesn't happen so clearly. It's that I put it away. I put it away for months. And during that time that I put it away, I delved into Flash, took classes on Flash, which is a commonly associated with Flash fiction, but for me, it's Flash nonfiction. And I was writing everything in probably, I'd say, under 500 words. And when you're writing Flash, one of the definitions is it's a full story with a beginning, a middle, and end. But there's some word limit. And so we were working with 500 words, 300 words, 250 words, go home, sit for a few months, and then take it back out and cut it in half. All kinds of 100 words, 6 words. There's all kinds of Flash out there, and all kinds of just, random rules. And my prose popped, and I saw the heart of what I was saying. I understood why I was writing what I was writing. And that's probably one of the biggest obstacles I faced. For years, I'd go to a writing group, we'd swap writing and we'd come together and we'd sit around the table and I would sit there and say, I know I have to write this, but I don't know why. I don't know what I'm trying to say. And as soon as I used the constraint, the word limit constraint, I understood what I was writing and why. And if that's the only thing I got out of it, that was worth gold for me. But it basically, I got feedback. I was writing a lot about my life in Israel. So this is 2018 into 2019. And I got a lot of feedback from people I didn't know online. Really interesting. I hope you're writing a memoir about your life in Israel. And so I have these books all about this place of the world that is really in a bad place right now. And I'm trying to promote both of them. I think of it as Irish twins. They will be born 13 months apart. And it's a tremendous amount of work. And it's rewarding. For sure, it's rewarding. I think that I teach. I run Israel Writer Studio, and I teach creative writing, and I don't just teach creative nonfiction because I'm in a non-English speaking country. And so I open up all my classes that are genreless, and I try to think of what is another tool that a writer could put into his or her toolbox, whether writing poetry or prose, whether fiction or nonfiction. My comfort zone is definitely memoir, and my comfort zone is definitely flash. So why was I telling you that? Because I also teach this workshop called Dare, Push, Play on the Page. And it's taking this idea that, trying to teach people, if it's me trying to put into words, into writing prompts, into language, into say to you, here's what I did. I don't say, here's what Amy Krauss Rosenthal did or what Nora Krug did, but here's what I did. So I did a lot of things in my first book. And I then went into my second manuscript and worked after this was accepted in early winter of 2022. I knew I was onto something. They loved the unconventional prose. And so I went back into the manuscript of the book coming out, Landed, which I hadn't yet submitted. And I kind of did a similar but different thing, which is I tried to do something different. This is my first chapter. It's a flow chart showing everywhere that I had lived, all these crazy moves that I had made and my husband had made. There's a checklist. I use pro-con list. I use, let's see if I can find it. I use footnotes. So I do all these things. And in Landed, I wanted to do also play on the page, dare, push, play, like my workshop, but I didn't want to repeat myself in any way. So I challenged myself, again, to keep thinking outside of the conventional prose box and do different things. So in Places We Left Behind, I use strike through to show what I'm thinking and I want the reader to know, but that I feel ashamed sometimes that I'm thinking, or I'm ashamed that I want the reader to know it. And so in Landed, I actually use caption bubbles, almost like a graphic memoir. I think if I do anything next, maybe it'll be one day a graphic memoir. I dream of that, or a graphic novel. But again, I don't have an artistic bone in my body. So how do you start that? I use caption bubbles, and I don't have it to, I can try to pull it up. No, okay. The typeset of the manuscript is beautiful. It is so cool looking. It's these black chunks, and they're showing my thoughts. Again, part of the story of I want you to know this. I'm revealing myself to you. I'm exposing myself to you. But let me put it here, in case you're a reader who skims things like this, you won't actually see it. So I do that. I took away the footnote idea, and instead I used endnotes, because I decided, rather than, not just because I didn't want to repeat myself and do the same technique, but because I felt like not everyone wants to read this little text at the bottom of the page. And maybe it annoyed some readers. And so I put it at the end. And I think I called it end notes for curious readers, because only someone curious is going to go back there. And that's okay. I'm completely cool with that. Then what else do I do? I work with font size. So sometimes I make the font size smaller than 12 points, sometimes bigger, because I'm trying to emphasize something or de-emphasize. I have a text, a chapter, which I actually now call chapterette, thanks to a conversation in LA at Zibby Bookshop with Blair Glazer. She called my tiny chapters chapterettes. I have a chapterette called Unspeakable. And with the publisher, we actually divided it across 2 pages. So un is on one side. It's like a he said, she said, and speakable is on the other. And I just think it's super cool. It's just really neat. It's kind of endless when you think about what you can do to play on the page. So my offering to you is, if any part of that speaks to you, if you're in a rut, if you're having trouble, if you're trying to think of a new way to approach a story, if you haven't been able to get in to something, or if you're in the middle of a project and you just don't know where to go, turn it into a list essay. Turn it into a list. Just do something different to the text while you're in it and see what happens. Give yourself some kind of either like a framework. I have like a fill in the blank sometimes. I have a true false test sometimes. You could do a hangman, right? Give yourself some kind of framework and see if you can put your text into that framework and see what happens. Because it might open you up to something new. It might lead you down a path you never thought you could take. It might relieve you. It might make you realize, you don't want to be writing that. Or it might make you see, wow, that is where the story is. It can do anything. It can do all of that. It might not do any of it. So here's the thing. I think to get where I've gotten, it's really important to practice being what is called a good literary citizen. I remember the first time I heard it, I was on a writing retreat. I was in Ireland. By the way, I'm American. I'm born in California, San Francisco Bay Area, and I live in Tel Aviv. So I went to Ireland with a writer. I think she was a writer. And I learned a lot. And she spent like an hour talking about being a literary citizen and how much time every day you should devote to it. And I was taking notes because it was just really new to me. I was kind of doing a lot of it, but without knowing that there was this term. So for example, I had been a reader for many different literary journals. It's voluntary jobs. Most of these readers are. Most of the editing jobs are. So I had read for Hunger Mountain, which is Vermont College of Fine Arts literary journal. I had read for something called Memoirs Inc., which is defunct. And then I hopped on board at Brevity probably in 2018, I think. And you learn so much, so much. My 4 or 5 years at Brevity, I can't even begin to tell you, like within a few sentences, you can see if you're reading something that has potential or not. And it starts to just get inside. There's an understanding that happens with what makes for good story. Unfortunately, being on social media and supporting your fellow writers, whether it's applauding them with new publications, for new books, or sharing a story that they wrote. I have a page on Facebook for my business, Israel Writer Studio, and I try every once in a while to share a piece of writing that I've read that I just think is like everyone should read it. Of course, it's subjective. And go to Goodreads. Here's another one. You read a good book, sign up for Goodreads. Old technology, I think it possibly predates Facebook. I got on there way early, and then I was on it for a couple of years, and then I just let it go. And now here I am back as an author, and I'm begging anyone who reads my book, or anyone who wants to read my book, I beg you, let's talk directly, to go to Goodreads, find the books, Places We Left Behind, a memoir in miniature, Landed, a yogi's memoir in pieces and poses, and check want to read. Start there. It all changes the algorithms. And then if you read the book, please go there and leave an honest review, stars, and just 1 or 2 sentences. And then take that honest review and go to Amazon. And then take that honest review, copy and paste, and go to Barnes and Noble. All of these small gestures help authors hugely. Again, it's all about the algorithms. So all of that is part of being a good literary citizen, but now I'm going to speak more personally, which is what's my reality. I don't live in the States. I go back to visit my parents, and I'm lucky that my parents live in a place where it's beautiful. Number one, San Francisco Bay Area, and number two, I still have really good friends. And I have spent the past probably going on 2 years now asking friends and family huge favors to help me promote my books. And anything from my books arrived in San Francisco at my cousin's last year, and I didn't get to see them, I think, for 13 days because I wasn't traveling yet. So my cousin, my 24-year-old cousin, opened up the box of books. We did a whole crazy Zoom recording situation with her phone. Took a few tries to figure it out. Of course, the 24-year-old figured it out. And she unboxed my books. And then I put it on social media, thanking her. So that's another thing, part of being a good literary citizen. I feel passionate about this. Everything that I've done, almost everything that I've published, from a piece of flash to the books, I did not get there on my own. I probably at least one person has read and helped me from A to B, from first sentence to last. Acknowledge them, thank them. When you post, yay, I have a piece of writing in whatever, please think about who helped you get there. We're not in a vacuum, and it's really important. So that's something I feel really strongly about, and I think it's part of being a good literary citizen, to acknowledge and everyone who's held your hand along the way, who's read, who's commented, given you feedback, suggested you submit there, whatever it is, and tag them. So I think that those are the main things I wanted to share with you today. Literary success. It's a funny thing. People ask me, what's my goal with my books? I could say it's that I sell so many copies that I get rich, but that is not going to happen. So I can just say to you, that's not my goal. No one's going to get rich from this. It's hard for me to admit this. I would like to be acknowledged, actually, speaking of acknowledgement, for the creative devices that I used, and whether I invented them or I'm possibly imitating and don't realize it, which that's not good. I've sometimes wished that when I'm submitting for prizes that there were this other category, which is unconventional prose. And first of all, it'd be great for me to see, like, who else is doing this? I'm not alone. And what are they doing? So sometimes I set my chapters up like what some people call poetry. And here's the thing, I'm not a poet. So I'm not going to say to you, this is a poem. I'm going to say to you, I took my prose and it's a hard story. And so I'm spacing it out in a certain way and across the page. I want certain words on the right and certain words on the left, and to emphasize and to de-emphasize, and all within the context of what I've written about, which is a lot of my wrestling with and my fear of living in the place that I now call home, Israel. So I think that this was more subconscious. I didn't get this until I went through many, many conversations about my first book throughout this past year, which is by writing in unconventional prose, which I call playful, I lighten a really heavy story. And that's where we connect to today. August, September 2024, we in Israel are in a very hard place. We, as citizens of the world, are in a very hard place. And I'm really thankful. It's almost like I had foresight in some really wacko way to play with my text so that I at least can look at these books and say, okay, it wasn't all bad. Because honestly, this first book came out and I had 32 days to celebrate before the war broke out on October 7th. So that's what I want to leave you with. If I were to give you any advice, it's to play on the page, one, which comes from Barbara Hurd. But two, I've lifted this from Nike. I'm going to acknowledge them over and over again because nobody says it better, which is just do it. Just do it. Stop making excuses, but stop starting your sentences with but I don't have time, but the kids, but the carpool, but the work deadline. Just do it. So that's it. Thanks so much. Thank you, Sean Murphy. And thanks for listening. And I hope that you support me and check out my books. And if you want to find me online, I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Jen Lang Writes, JenLangWrites. And I'd love to hear from you. And good reads. Want to read? Thanks.